a very radiant and intellectually vibrant morning to our distinguished guests, delegates, faculties, participants, scholars, and students. We gather here today at Pondicherry University, an institution celebrating 40 years of academic excellence for the inaugural session of the Indian Anthropology Congress 2026. This prestigious event is organized by the Department of Anthropology and the Center for Study of Social Inclusion, Pondicherry University, in collaboration with the Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists, INCA. I now invite our esteemed dignitaries on stage for the lighting of the lamp. To formally set the tone for this Congress, I feel privileged to invite Dr. Valerie Dakar, Head, Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry University, and convener of this Indian Anthropology Congress 2026, to deliver the welcome address.
Respected Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Prakash Babu, Keynote Speaker, Professor Sudhakar Rao. We have Professor B.V. Sharma with us, Professor Chandramoli, Professor Kishore Basa, and Professor Shubha Roy, Professor J. Suratnam, and dignitaries, luminaries who are seated in the auditorium, distinguished guests, eminent scholars, esteemed scientists, colleagues, research scholars, and dear students. A very good morning to one and all. It is my great honor and privilege to extend a warm welcome and cordial welcome to all of you to the Indian Anthropology Congress 2026. This prestigious academic gathering brings together leading anthropologists, academicians, and researchers from across the country to deliberate on emerging trends, innovative research, and interdisciplinary perspectives in anthropology. The theme of this year's Congress, Rethinking Anthropology, Biological and Cultural Diversity, Indian Knowledge System and Sustainability, is both timely and intellectually significant. The theme encourages us to re-examine anthropological approaches in the context of contemporary global challenges, while highlighting the importance of biological diversity, cultural heritage, indigenous knowledge traditions, and sustainable development. Anthropology today plays a crucial role in connecting traditional knowledge with modern scientific frameworks, thereby contributing to inclusive and culturally sensitive solutions for the future. We are deeply honored by the presence of our respected Chief Patron and Honorable Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University, Professor P. Prakash Babu, who will be delivering the presidential address. Under his visionary leadership, the university has continued to strengthen academic excellence, interdisciplinary research, and institutional collaborations. His commitment to higher education, research innovation, and academic administration has greatly contributed to strengthening the academic ecosystem, and under his able leadership, the university is celebrating 40 years of academic excellence this year. So we welcome you, sir, to this inaugural function. Thank you. We are equally privileged to have with us our keynote speaker, Professor N. Sudhakar Rao, who is the former head, Department of Anthropology, University of Hyderabad. He is widely respected for his scholarly contributions to anthropology, academic mentorship, and long-standing engagements with teaching and research. And his work continues to inspire generations of anthropologists across the country. We welcome you, sir, to this gathering. We are also very honored to welcome our distinguished dignitaries who will be delivering the felicitation address. We have with us Professor B.V. Sharma, Director, Anthropological Survey of India, which is an eminent institution dedicated to anthropological research and documentation of India's rich cultural and biological diversity. His leadership continues significantly to field-based research and national level anthropological innovations, and ANSI has continued to soar high within the domains of academia and research thanks to him. So we welcome you, sir, to this gathering. We have with us Professor N. Chandramoli, who is the Dean, School of Social Sciences and International Studies, whose academic leadership has strengthened interdisciplinary research and social science scholarship within the institution, and his guidance continues to support collaborative academic initiatives and intellectual growth. We welcome you, sir, to this gathering. We are also very privileged to have with us the distinguished leadership of Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists, INCA, with whom we are collaborating this Congress. Chairman Professor K. Basa, who is an eminent anthropologist and academic administrator, who is known for his contributions to anthropology, heritage studies, and institutional development. His work has played an important role in strengthening anthropological research networks in India, and we welcome you, sir. So we also welcome Member Secretary Professor Shubha Roy, a distinguished scholar who is actively engaged in academic coordination, research promotion, and strengthening professional collaborations among the anthropologists nationwide, and we welcome you, sir, to this gathering. I also extend a very warm welcome to all the deans who are present here, the heads of departments, our revered senior anthropologists who have made it a point to join us in this Congress. We're very thankful to you. The eminent scientists from different research institutes, esteemed delegates, faculty members, research scholars, and students whose enthusiastic participation makes this Congress academically vibrant and intellectually enriching. The Congress has received an overwhelming response from the academic community. We are delighted to announce that we are hosting over 280 external participants representing various universities, research institutions, and organizations from across the country and also from overseas. And we, of course, have our own 130 internal participants, so it's a huge gathering that we are hosting for the 3 days Congress. Such remarkable participation reflects the growing relevance of anthropology in addressing contemporary academic and societal concerns. Over the course of 3 days of deliberations, the Congress will feature a comprehensive academic program comprising 21 thematic panels, 1 roundtable discussion, 3 memorial orations, and 3 special panels. These sessions will cover diverse areas, which includes biological anthropology, social cultural anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and indigenous knowledge system, public health, environment and sustainability, tribal studies, heritage studies, and applied anthropology. These deliberations will provide an excellent platform for academic exchange, collaborative research discussions, and meaningful intellectual engagements. I take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to the organizing committee, right from our chief patron, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, the registrar, and other academic and administrative officers, INCA Governing Council members, the Indian Anthropology Congress Advisory Committee, faculty members, research scholars, student volunteers whose dedication and tireless efforts have made this Congress possible. Their commitment reflects the true spirit of academic collaboration and excellence. Dear participants and delegates, we will try our utmost best to make your stay in Pondicherry comfortable and meaningful. However, I request you to kindly bear with us if there is any shortcoming. I assure you we will try our very best to resolve it at the earliest. Once again, I warmly welcome all the distinguished dignitaries and participants to the Indian Anthropology Congress 2026. I hope that the deliberations over the next 3 days will be productive, insightful, and inspiring for all. Thank you and God bless.
I now invite Professor Kishore K. Basha, Chairman of Indian National Confederation and Academics of Anthropology and former Chairman of the National Monuments Authority to address us. Professor Basa is a renowned scholar of archaeology and museum studies who has previously led major national institutions including the Maharaja Sri Ram Chandra Bhanu Dio University, Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Manav Sangrahalaya, Indian Museum in Kolkata and the Anthropological Survey of India. We are privileged to be the audience of your address today, sir.
What anthropology makes as a unique discipline is that whether you do social anthropology, whether you do biological anthropology, whether you do archaeological anthropology or whether you do linguistic anthropology, the link is culture. If you are not linking culture into your interpretative framework, then you are not an anthropologist. So what I meant to say is that that strength, that how culture and biology can be linked, culture and society can be linked, culture and archaeology could be linked. So anthropology as a discipline throws light not only on the contemporary social framework as a synchronic level, but it also gives a diachronic perspective in understanding society. Now, that combination of both synchronic and diachronic makes our discipline a unique one. And with that understanding, if we try to understand this civilizational strength of India, both in terms of its past and its continuing presence, I think our subject is extremely relevant. People talk of science and technology. And when people think of science and technology, there is an assumption sometimes, and to me that's an erroneous assumption, as if science and technology is delinked from culture. I think the strength of India as a nation is that the Indian perception of science and technology takes culture into an important framework. Because if a technology develops, if a scientific principle develops, it doesn't take place in a cultural void. It takes place in a cultural context. Now, I must admit that as an anthropologist, perhaps we have failed to emphasize the growth of science and technology in India and the role of culture in it. Perhaps we have failed, but I think time has come to emphasize that dimension. If concept of zero developed in Indian context, under what philosophical context concept of zero developed? If Charaka Samhita became an important text, is it a mere Sanskrit text? Why Sushruta developed his surgery concept? Therefore, to me, science and technology, the message of India, as far as to the rest of the world is concerned, that science and technology has a cultural background. And as social scientists or as anthropologists, it is our responsibility to find out or to emphasize that cultural background for the understanding of science and technology. This is one point I would like to make. The other point I would like to make is that when we are talking of Indian knowledge system, to me, we should not romanticize Indian knowledge system. We should not jump into conclusion that anything and everything that we find in 21st century world has happened in Indian context. That would be too reductionist a way to understand the development of science and technology in this country. I would think that we will have to take a middle path. Neither we should reject the Indian knowledge system that it doesn't mean anything, like James Mill's History of India. James Mill, when he wrote History of India, he said, well, Indians did not have a sense of history. Chinese have a sense of history, but Indians did not have a sense of history. But so being influenced by that tradition, we should not reject Indian knowledge system that it is nothing but a bunch of what this gentleman said in 1830s, that all the textual knowledge of India can be put into one shelf of British Library. This is the view of 1830s. But nor should we think that anything that is happening in 21st century world has happened in India. I think these two extreme views are to be shunned. On the contrary, we should navigate in between and to find out how within the traditional knowledge system there are certain elements which need scientific validation. And we should try to make scientific validation of our important cultural practices. Now, if we can make that, then we can use those items as an input in our sustainable development. Because that is the theme of our Congress, that how diversity, cultural and biological diversity, is a point of strength of this country. It is homogenization is not a strength of this country. It is diversity which is the strength of this country. And despite this diversity, how the civilization has grown in India, respecting different cultures of different phases. But then, how do we make it sustainable? If you want to, and here I think the role of anthropology comes in very significantly. And here I think anthropology stands for a paradigm shift. And what is that paradigm shift? When we study different tribal and folk societies of this country, there is a tendency among so-called metropolitan scholars that they would like and teach them, bring to the mainstream. This is a sentence very difficult to, for me it is very difficult to understand. Who is the mainstream? Who will bring them to the mainstream? I find them very difficult. On the contrary, now when the climate change is taking place, and I think there is a very important panel here on climate change, how we have to learn from the so-called, within quote, uncivilized or non-literal people. Because their lifestyle shows less carbon imprint. We, the so-called civilized people living in big cities, are responsible for more carbon imprint than them. So who is to learn from whom? You see, the nature-nurture or nature-culture relationship at a tribal and folk society level makes a balance of nature, nurture and culture and the acquisition of material resources. But we being civilized, we indiscriminately use or extract those resources, giving a price of the environmental crisis. So therefore, whose way of life is better? Whose way of life is more sustainable? Therefore, anthropology stands for a paradigm shift that we must shun our arrogance by treating these folk and tribal cultures as if they have to be civilized. On the contrary, I think we have to learn from them about how they maintain a balance between nature and acquisition of material resources. Here I am reminded of a very famous statement by a very well-known anthropologist. I think he said, Stone Age Economics, Marshall Sahlins. I think his first chapter was the original affluent community. And he wrote a very interesting thing, that he said that the prehistoric man was affluent not by producing more, but by desiring less. Now we have to learn these aspects, and this anthropology as a discipline teaches us. Therefore, without taking more time, I would say that the organization of Indian Anthropology Congress 21st in Pondicherry University is partly because of our emphasis of expanding this discipline in various universities of South India on the one hand, but at a broader level, at a bigger level, we want to demonstrate the relevance of anthropology in 21st century world, how by following anthropology's core agenda of respecting culture, both past and present, how that aspect can make us, enable us to plan for a sustainable world. I think the best way of leaving this world is that when a generation leaves the world, another generation comes in. The challenge is that when my generation leaves the world, I have to ensure that my succeeding generation is getting a better world than us. Now, if that is the challenge, I think anthropology has many answers. It is time that we should listen to anthropology as a discipline. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I call upon Professor Subbaroy, Member Secretary of INCA and Professor at the Biological Anthropology Unit, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, to address the gathering.
Professor P. Prakash Babu, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Pondicherry University, Professor N. Chandramouli, Dean School of Sciences, Pondicherry University, Professor Kishore Basa, Chairman INCA, Professor B.V. Sharma, Director Anthropological Survey of India, and also the Vice Chairman of INCA, Professor N. Sudhakar Rao, keynote speaker of this inaugural session, Dr. Valery Dakar, head of the Department Anthropology, Professor Jesuratnam Devarapalli, and Professor Tanuja, who is also co-organizer of this Indian Anthropology Congress. Distinguished delegates, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. The Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists is the largest professional body of anthropologists, which was formally took place a shape on 12th of March in 2004. But prior to that, as I was speaking to one of the architects of INCA, Professor T.B. Subba this morning, the ball started rolling 2002, sometimes in December, in IGRMS, who is one of our collaborators for all the congresses, so also Anthropological Survey of India. And in 2003, first Indian Anthropology Congress took place in Shillong, and that time INCA was not formally formed, and finally it was formed on 12th of March 2004 with some five objectives: to create a network of professional anthropologists, to promote excellence in anthropology, to promote national and international dialogues of the professionals on various pressing issues, to promote anthropology in teaching and research and evaluation, publicize specific areas where application of anthropological knowledge seems indispensable. We have been trying, we have not succeeded a lot, but I am very hopeful that INCA will progress because the body is growing in numbers. We are now having a huge number of enrollment every year from young faculties and scholars, students from different parts of India. And every year, this 21st to 23rd of February, we have earmarked for this annual mega academic event, Indian Anthropology Congress. Other than this, we also organize online lectures, book discussion series, and so on. So I'm happy to share that young scholars are participating and taking active role in the activities of this confederation. I congratulate and thank the organizers for organizing this mega event. Thank you so much.
It is an honor to invite Professor B.V. Sharma, the Director of the Anthropological Survey of India, for his felicitation address. With over 30 years of experience, Professor Sharma is a leading expert in medical anthropology and tribal welfare who has significantly contributed to our understanding of ethnomedicine and community development. We are honored to have you, sir, and please.
Respected Professor Prakash Babu Garu, Vice Chancellor, Pondicherry University, and a distinguished alumnus of University of Hyderabad, an identity which I share with him very proudly, along with Professor N. Sudhakar Rao, who is also the keynote speaker for today. And respected Professor K.K. Basaji, the chairperson of INCA, Professor Subbaroy, Professor Valery, Head Department of Anthropology, and other distinguished guests on the dais, and many distinguished scholars of the dais. A very good morning to all of you. I feel deeply honored to share the dais with distinguished scholars today. In fact, I was very hesitant to accept this request to be on the dais by the Department of Anthropology today. I was telling them that I would like to be off the dais and also enjoy the academic deliberations on all the 3 days. But then I thought a rather kind of compulsion on me now. I'm also asked to speak for 5 minutes at least on this day, and I know that the organizers will be happy if I can limit myself to the 5 minutes time because of the pressure of time that they have. Well, when they said that I should give a felicitation kind of response to the felicitation, I was thinking, what do I say? Do I speak about or reflect on the theme of the Congress? Should I say something about the relevance of anthropology as was done by our chairperson of INCA? Or should I say something about the organization which I am heading, the ANSI? Or should I say something else generally about the discipline? I thought, okay, a good idea will be to synthesize everything. And if so, I should start with ANSI only, because that's the organization that I'm currently associated with, though I had spent more than 34 years in the University of Hyderabad teaching anthropology, introducing medical anthropology to the students there. Very fortunate that I had spent time on such in that university. I had colleagues like Professor Prakash Babu and others with whom I worked very closely, have learned and then heading this institute. Well, I don't have to say much about ANSI for many of you, but still I will have to say a few things which is happening with ANSI in the last 2-3 years at least. As many of you know, this has got a long history. Its roots are deep, having been established in the year 1945. And the uniqueness of this institute is that this is the only institute in the world which is devoted to the anthropology discipline from the government side, only institute in the world. Currently, yes, this institute has got around 300 plus staff, all anthropologists, many of them I would say. Of course, there are non-teaching or administrative staff. During the last 3 years, we could recruit more than 65 scientific staff. Perhaps this happened after a long time of, say, about 15 to 20 years. In the last 2 years, we recruited 65 and another 30 would be recruited in the next 1 year or so. So it looks like things are bright now as far as the institute is concerned in terms of number of staff and research. More than this, as some of you may have seen in the newspapers and all, we've got an opportunity to present to the parliamentarians about what anthropology is, what is the relevance of anthropology, what is the potential for anthropology in recent years, probably more than in the past. I am proudly saying this because there were plenty of questions in Parliament. The HCM had to give a 3-page answer to the question on what kind of research was undertaken or being undertaken in Anthropological Survey of India only last year. And the 3-page response of HCM was published by the Press Information Bureau, giving all details of research that is happening. Perhaps that also happened for the first time. More than that, very recently, last week, there was a parliamentary standing committee review on the research of Anthropological Survey of India and with a specific focus on population genetics research. This review only last week, and this is the first time for Anthropological Survey of India. I was inquiring with Zoological Survey of India and Botanical Survey of India about this kind of exercise, and they were saying that yes, our surveys had this kind of review at least once in 10 years, but I do not know why this never happened in ANSI. But fortunately, we got this chance to present before 31 parliamentarians. The standing committee comprised 31 members. Of that, 22 members physically attended the meeting. And I had the opportunity to present about anthropology research, relevance, kind of thing for almost 1.5 hours. And I was glad that, yes, the members were very glad, very encouraging. And throughout my presentation, they were appreciating what the research that's happening in ANS, not just in ANSI, but actually understanding what anthropology can contribute. We have not only presented all the research that was undertaken, say, around 30 years, but also the current research that is happening, relating it to, the contemporary issues, developmental issues. We're happy that the parliamentarians have expressed their satisfaction about how anthropology can contribute and have, industry collaborations and also collaboration with other organizations. And as a sequel to this review, 23rd and 24th of March, we propose to have a workshop in Hyderabad, a grand collaborative workshop, where the DZ, Director General of Zoological Survey of India, Director General of Botanical Survey of India, GSI Director, along with Director CCMB, CDFD, and others would be participating. And I'm glad that all of them have agreed that ANSI should take the lead for this kind of collaborative research. And this would be happening on 23rd and 24th, and probably we will give it a grand plan of collaborative research as to how anthropology can also coordinate with other similar organizations within the government and outside the government. I'm just saying all this to say that, yes, the relevance of anthropology, I understand, is realized. When I joined ANSI, our secretary just gave me 2 minutes of time and said that the public image of anthropology is very poor, the government image of ANSI is even poor, so you will have to do something about it. And then I started the work, and that's how things are happening at ANSI. And as we are doing ANSI, I'm also now connecting to what Professor Basa was saying. Yes, the discipline of anthropology, we will have to make it more relevant. We need to take up research that is appreciated much better in terms of, this can happen if we can align our research to the government policies and programs and prove our worth in every area. And collaborations are possible. Funding should not be an issue if the research ideas are good. We don't have to do different things, but we have to do things differently. This is what I believed, and this is what I would request everyone here to do, to make anthropological research more meaningful, more relevant to the people. If the discipline can be strengthened in the universities, yes, it will become more relevant. And from ANSI side, we would be doing everything that is possible for us. And more particularly in the context of the NEP 2020. We are aligning our policies to the NEP 2020, and particularly for anthropology departments, we will be doing everything that is required for the internship of students. We are making a plan now. In the next 2-3 months, this will be revealed through in our website and all, how we can have specific MOUs with the university departments of anthropology to provide internships to anthropology students. Our plan is to take at least 300 to 400 students as interns in the next 1 or 2 years, engage them in research, give them the kind of training that is required to undertake complex research issues and problems. All this will be possible with the support of departments like Pondicherry University, and I'm sure if the universities are headed by persons like Prakash Babu, these things will be even more easy. And I'm looking forward to this kind of collaboration with Pondicherry University and also with many other universities, and I'm sure the representatives of different universities are here. We can have and strengthen anthropology together. Let's work together to make anthropology research more meaningful, more relevant. Thank you very much.
Sabha Saraswati ko Sadar Pranam. Distinguished colleagues, esteemed President of the event, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Prakash Babu, Professor K.K. Basa, whom I am meeting again after nearly more than a decade, who is the Chairman of INCA, Professor Shubho Roy, Secretary INCA, Professor B.V. Sharma, Director Anthropological Survey of India, Professor N. Sudhakar Rao, Keynote Speaker, Professor J. Suratnam, Dr. Valerie, Head Department of Anthropology and Convener of IAC 2026, honored guests, my teacher, Professor P. Vijay Prakash, Andhra University, my senior colleague, Professor B.B. Mohanty, Dr. Tanuja, co-organizer, Head Center for the Study of Social Inclusion, my colleagues from the School of Social Sciences, research scholars, and students. It is a great honor for me to be with you all this morning to offer my felicitations for this August gathering of the Indian Anthropological Congress 2026. A gathering where minds converge to rethink anthropology against the backdrop of India's rich biological and cultural diversity, its timeless knowledge systems, and the pressing imperative of sustainability. The discipline of anthropology has long endeavored to understand humanity in its entirety. With the emerging realities and challenges of today's world, it is imperative that we need to reorient not only our methods but also our epistemologies. The Congress is the best and perfect forum to reflect upon how anthropology can evolve to meet these challenges. India is known for its extraordinarily rich biological diversity and an equally rich cultural diversity reflected by our languages, traditions, belief systems, cults, and social practices. These spheres shall not be viewed as separate, but are rather interconnected systems, and anthropology must embrace and deliberate on this dual richness. The indigenous knowledge systems of our nation in the domains of agriculture, medicine, architecture, philosophy, and the like present insightful understanding into sustainable living. These knowledge systems can inform contemporary science and policy makers by which anthropology can stand as a nexus in integrating these systems into global discourses. Anthropology, with its holistic lens, is uniquely equipped to combine biological and cultural perspectives in a manner whereby it is possible to shape trajectories towards a more sustainable and resilient future. Let us bear in mind that this Congress is not a simple academic event, but gives a call for action. It invites us to rethink anthropology as an emerging practice that focuses on the simple societies, their changing role in the rapid urbanization, discoursing with policymakers, and encountering global challenges. I especially appreciate the Department of Anthropology, who, with just 3 faculties, shouldering the Herculean task of conducting the Indian Anthropological Congress 2026, under the stewardship of young and dynamic head of the department, Dr. Valerie. I extend my heartfelt felicitations for the resounding success of the Indian Anthropological Congress 2026 and look forward to the transformative ideas that emerge from this journey. Thank you very much.
We have now reached the focal point of our morning. I have the distinct honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Professor N. Sudhakar Rao, former head of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Hyderabad. Professor Rao is a seminal figure in Indian anthropology known for his deep ethnographic work on power dynamics, caste ideology, and the cultural life of tribal communities. Professor, we are honored by your presence and we eagerly look forward to your insights.
Given the very short time, and I must be brief, but I can't avoid taking time. The dignitaries on the dais and of the dais, distinguished co-anthropologists, respected seniors of the discipline, students and friends. It's a privilege to address this august gathering at a moment when anthropology, globally and especially in India, is being asked to rethink itself with renewed urgency. The theme of this conference, Rethinking Anthropology, Biological and Cultural Diversity, Indian Knowledge Systems and Sustainability, is not merely topical. It signals a deeper intellectual and ethical reckoning with how we understand human diversity, knowledge, and survival in a rapidly changing world. Given this, across academic institutions globally, just not only in India, globally, the social sciences confront skepticism, managerial scrutiny, funding compression, and demands for immediate instrumental utility, making rethinking anthropology quite relevant. Yet today, the pressure rethink comes not only from theoretical debate, but from the world itself. Climate change, biodiversity loss, public health crisis, displacement, digital transformations, and intensifying inequality confronts us with questions that cannot be answered by disciplinary routine alone. These are not isolated issues. They are symptoms of deeper ruptures in how humans relate to nature, to each other, and to knowledge itself. Changing perspectives and scenarios. Over the past few decades, anthropology itself has undergone a profound transformation. The discipline that once concentrated on relatively bounded small-scale societies now confronts a world defined by globalization, mobility, digital connectivity, ecological crisis, and transnational flows of capital, ideas, and people. The classical image of isolated culture has given way to an understanding of deeply interconnected life worlds in which the local is shaped by global forces and the global is experienced through local histories and ontologies. Ethnography has become multi-sited and reflexivity. Anthropology now engages development, environmental governance, public health, migration, corporations, and technical infrastructures. The scope of the discipline has diversified theoretically and methodologically, requiring us to rethink scale, context, and responsibility. Anthropology can no longer treat culture as a self-contained unit. It must analyze how global processes are mediated through particular moral worlds and lived experiences. It is within this shift disciplinary landscape that the question of rethinking culture becomes urgent. I want to use this keynote address to make three interconnected arguments. First, anthropology must move beyond treating culture, biology, and knowledge as objects of analysis and instead understand them as conditions of existence. Second, the Indian knowledge systems cannot be approached as heritage archives or civilizational residues, but must be recognized as living ontologies and life worlds shaped by history, power, and ecological relations. Third, that sustainability is not only environmental or technological problem, but an existential and ontological question about how humans dwell in the world, relate to nature, and sustain meaningful life. Taken together, these arguments point toward a renewed anthropology, one that is empirically grounded, theoretically rigorous, ethically attentive, and capable of speaking to the crisis of our time. Why rethink anthropology now? Anthropology has always been a discipline of rethinking. Yet today, the pressure to rethink comes not only from theoretical debate but also from the world itself. I mentioned the climate changes, biodiversity, and all that. Then you can see, in Indian context, these ruptures are particularly visible. We are home to extraordinary biological and cultural diversity, just now mentioned, yet also witnesses acute environmental degradation, dispossession of indigenous communities, erosion of commons, and growing epistemic marginalization of local knowledge. Anthropology cannot remain a spectator to these processes, nor can it treat into abstract critique. It must rethink its scope, its core concepts, that is, culture, nature, knowledge, and sustainability, not as neutral categories, but as historically produced ways of being in the world. Then I turn to culture, an object of existential condition. Let me begin with culture, anthropology's most familiar yet unsettled concept. For much of its history, anthropology has treated culture as an object, a system, a structure, a text, a repertoire, or mechanism. Whether functionalists or symbolicists or practice-based, cognitive or political dominant theories have asked what culture does, what it means, how it reproduces itself. These approaches has given us powerful insights, yet they share a common limitation. Culture appears as something people have rather than something people are within. I want to suggest a shift from culture as object to culture as existential condition. By existential condition, I mean the historically constituted medium through which people inhabit the world, negotiate uncertainty, endure suffering, engage with nature, and sustain life under constraints they do not fully choose. Right. Culture in this sense is not detachable from existence. It is how existence becomes livable. Seen in this way, culture is the sedimentation of history into everyday life. 2. An implicit ontology of personhood and nature. 3. Culture is an embodied engagement with material world. 4. A field of subjective and intersubjective experience. 5. A response to infinitude, uncertainty, and vulnerability, and a product of encounter, conflict, and compromise. I don't know. Okay, there is no time to explain. This perspective allows us to analyze continuity and rupture, endurance and transformation, without reifying culture or dissolving it into structure alone. Then, I'll come to the next point. Biological and cultural diversity beyond reductionism. This existential orientation, anthropology has long grappled with the relationship between biology and culture, sometimes separating them too sharply, sometimes reducing one to another. Contemporary debates on genetics, health, nutrition, aging, and evolution demands a more integrated approach. Others have voiced the same. A biocultural perspective, when grounded existentially, recognizes that human bodies are biological, but lived historically and socially. Health is not merely physiological, but embedded in livelihoods, environment, and meaning. And biological diversity is inseparable from cultural practices that regulate reproduction, diet, care, and ecological engagement. So, biological, cultural, very closely interrelated. Human variation is not just genetic differences or cultural patterning. It is diverse ways of inhabiting the human condition under specific material and ecological constraints. Now, let me talk about the Indian knowledge systems from heritage to life worlds. Indian knowledge systems are often discussed today in celebratory or national terms as ancient wisdom, civilizational achievement, or cultural heritage. While such recognition may counter colonial dismissal, it also carries risks. When knowledge is treated as heritage, it becomes static rather than lived, decontextualized, from power to relation, and detached from the ecological and social worlds that produced it. From an anthropological perspective, Indian knowledge systems must be understood not primarily as texts or doctrines, but as lived life world knowledge. In this context, Indian knowledge systems, the Nyaya Sutra, authored by Rishi Gautama around 2nd century BCE, is the foundational text of the Nyaya school, one of the 6 orthodox Astika systems of Indian philosophy, and remains relevant to anthropological methodology today. It provides a systematic, logical framework for examining reality, emphasizing epistemology, rational analysis, and a rigorous debate to attain true knowledge, tattva-jnana, and liberation, that is, nishreyasa. Right. Then, from suffering, key aspects of Nyaya Sutra include four sources of valid knowledge, that is pramana, and the pramana includes perception, pratyaksha, then inference, anumana, 3, comparison, upamana, 4, verbal testimony, shabda. So, Nyaya emphasizes realism. Objects exist independently of cognition. Then conditional validity. Knowledge is valid under proper condition. Diffusibility. Cognition is invalidated by stronger counter evidence. Social mediation, testimony is independent pramana. When the speaker is apta, competent, and truthful, this epistemological architecture provides a powerful analytical lens for ethnography. Culturally, these knowledge systems have never existed outside history. They have been shaped and often undermined by kinship, caste, hierarchy, trade, colonial rule, and post-colonial development. Right. So, in this new perspective, we can look at culture also. Now, I'll come to the sustainability as ontological question. This brings me to sustainability. Sustainability is commonly framed as a technical problem of energy transition, resource management, or policy failure. While these are important, they are insufficient. From an anthropological and existential perspective, sustainability is an ontological question. How humans relate to land, forests, rivers, seas, animals, and future generations. In Indian context, environmental unsustainability is not accidental. It is historically produced through specific ways of human agency. The transformation of custodial kingship, not kinship, kingship, royalship, kingship into extractive state power, caste-based control over land and labor, trade-driven commodification of nature, colonial legal regimes that criminalized customary use, and post-colonial development models that privileged growth over dwelling. So these processes did more than degrade ecosystem. They produced ontological ruptures, the erosion of meaningful relations between humans and nature. Forest became timber, river became infrastructure, land became real estate, and seas became zones of extraction. Communities were not only displaced materially, they were displaced existentially. Right. Then, coming to Indian case, it presents extraordinary biological diversity, ecological range, linguistic plurality, civilizational depth. Simultaneously, it reveals enduring caste formations, intricate tribal societies, layered sovereignties, and sacred geographies. And contemporary environmental crisis. To analyze India anthropologically is not the list of differences. It is to understand how diversity, territory, power, and meaning have historically co-produced one another. Rethinking anthropology in this context is to analyze how sacred legitimation, political power, ecological systems, all these have come together. Right. The contemporary ecological crisis in India renders this pattern starkly visible. Deforestation, mining expansion, river diversion, coastal transformation, these are often framed as technical or developmental issues. Anthropologically, however, they signify transformation of sacred territories into commodities. Forests once governed by taboo and ancestral guardianship become mineral deposits. Rivers once worshipped become infrastructural channels. What was historically inalienable becomes exchangeable. When modern development subjects these domains to commodification, the result is not merely economic transition. It is an ontological rupture. The sustainability crisis in India is therefore civilizational in scope. It reflects the destabilization of historically structured relationship between sacred authority, caste formations, tribal life worlds, ecological dwelling, and material control. So you can see these kinds of interlinking of sustainability and nature and human societies from historical time. Now, let me come to Indian anthropology, rethinking Indian anthropology. I conclude very shortly, but before that, let me say this. The growth of Indian anthropology has passed from formative, constructive, analytic, and evaluative phrases, from colonial ethnographic mapping to university institutions, from village studies to indigenous models, and Indological analysis to applied and action research. Indian anthropologists have consistently engaged with the complexity of their own society. They developed models of tribe caste continuum, the sacred complex, Sanskritization, mobility, leadership, and composite culture. They attempt to grasp Indian civilization through texts, villages, kinship, folklore, and power structures. Yet, a foundational tension has remained. Louis Dumont's Indological formulation located the organizing principle of Indian society in a hierarchy structured by Puritan pollution. In his view, the religious encompassed the political. By contrast, F.G. Bailey's political anthropology emphasized strategy, faction, interest, and material condition. Where Dumont foregrounded ideology, Bailey foregrounded power. Both made significant contributions, yet each in isolation remains incomplete. To move forward, we require a framework that does not separate religion and politics, nor reduce one to another. Here Maurice Godelet offers a decisive insight. Societies, he argues, are sustained not only by what they exchange, but what they refuse to alienate, that is power. Power stabilizes itself by controlling domains rendered sacred and inalienable. So if we apply this insight to India, more integrated picture emerges. The king did not rule solely by force. His sovereignty required ritual consecration. The Brahmin did not dominate solely through belief. Ritual authority structured land control and legitimacy and social reproduction. Caste endured not merely because of purity ideology or solely because of economic interest, but because hierarchy was sacralized within institutional arrangement. Indian society evolved not as a closed caste system nor as a fragmented tribal isolates, but as a historically layered formation of castes and tribes. Incorporation occurred through force alliance, land grants, ritual absorption, and administrative classification. Yet, tribes retained their own ontologies, cosmologies, and folklore, even as they were drawn into wider state. What emerges then is neither Dumont's pure hierarchy nor Bailey's pure political strategy, but a structured articulation of sacred authority and material power. Land under Brahminical ideology was not merely property, it was cosmologically anchored territory. Political sovereignty was not merely administrative, it was ritually validated. Hegemony was not merely ideological, it was existentially lived. Such a framework where we can put together allows us to understand both durability and ruptures. It clarifies why Indian social formation endured across centuries and why contemporary commodification and extractive development stabilizes them so profoundly. To rethink Indian anthropology, therefore, is not to abandon earlier studies. It is to integrate their insights within a broader politics, religion, and anthropology. One attentive to sacred power, land control, caste formation, tribal incorporation, and lived experiences. To conclude, if the 21st century is to belong to anthropology, it will not be because anthropology becomes more technical or more managerial. It will be because anthropology insists that human life cannot be reduced to metrics, markets, or mechanisms. It insists that societies endure when material organization and moral imagination remain in tension yet in relation. It insists that diversity is adaptive intelligence, that inalienability stabilizes exchange, and that sustainability requires limits. To think anthropology today is to restore its depth, to recognize that at the heart of every enduring society lies a negotiation between the material and the sacred, between circulation and restraint, between survival and meaning. It is within that negotiation that both crisis and possibility reside. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was an enlightening speech. Sir touched upon how anthropology has revamped itself from being an isolated discipline to an interconnected one, and how we should treat culture and biology not as objects of analysis, but as conditions of existence. And we should treat Indian knowledge systems and Indian culture as living ontologies and lived experiences, and how sustainability is an ontological question, and how humans relate to the environment, and how this environmental consciousness is organically produced in Indian social systems, from linguistic pluralities to sacred landscapes. Sir also touched upon rethinking Indian anthropology, touched upon the contributions of the Indian anthropologists from theories, and discussed Maurice Godley's insight as the framework for the path forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the enlightening speech. It's now time for the presidential address. I humbly invite our chief patron, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University, Professor P. Prakash Babu, to deliver his remarks.
Very good morning, all of you. The guests on the dais, Professor Sudhakar Rao Garu, a senior colleague from University of Hyderabad, and Professor B.V. Sharma, is my colleague and a friend from University of Hyderabad again, now the Director of Anthropological Survey of India, and Professor Kishore K. Basa, INCA, former Chairman, National Monuments Authority, Government of India, Professor Subho Roy, Biological Anthropology Unit, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, Professor Chandramouli, colleague and Dean, School of Social Sciences and International Studies, Professor J. Suratnam, another senior colleague, Department of Anthropology, and Professor Valerie Decker, Head of the Department and the Convener of the program, distinguished senior colleagues, scientists, professors, invited delegates, research scholars, other department colleagues sitting here, students, media and PRO unit of the University of Pondicherry University. I extend my warm welcome to the Pondicherry University to conduct this 3-day program of the Indian Anthropology Congress 2026. When Professor Valerie visited me and said she is planning to organize a congress, and the society agreed to have this meeting here, I readily said, yes, we can do that, because this is one of the prestigious societies in the country, And this department is also very well known in the country and one of the oldest departments of the Pondicherry University. This university, in a brief, we have the 14 plus 1 schools, 15 schools we have, and there are 44 departments, 10 centers, and 3 chairs in the Pondicherry University. The total strength of the students, 10,136. And we have affiliated colleges, around 120. And also we have the off campuses at different places, like Karaikal, Mahe in Kerala, Andaman Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, and also Yanam in Andhra Pradesh. These are all part of the Pondicherry University. It's a huge responsibility, and this is the most happening university. I welcome you all to Puducherry. As one of the speakers indicated, I think Professor Basha indicated that, when we say that Puducherry, people have come and we got many more registrations. This is what I keep telling to my colleagues. If one visitor comes this year, they should feel like to come next year. Yes. We should make such a kind of arrangements and honor them in the Pondicherry University. But to my surprise, you know what is happening? Whenever the guest comes, next time they said, sir, next time we'll come with family. It's like a 1+1 offer we have. So you are most welcome to come to Pondicherry University once again in the coming years. Now, regarding this meeting, conference, Rethinking Anthropology, Biological and Cultural Diversity, Indian Knowledge Systems and Sustainability, I think my earlier speakers, they did not leave anything to me to say any word, because they have covered all the topics. But however, since I'm here, I will also make few points and quickly leave. As you know, the anthropology traditionally, it's a sustained humans through biological evolution, culture, language, and the archaeology. Now, this is the traditional. Now we have to rethink about the anthropology in the context of the climatic change, biodiversity loss, cultural homogenization, and the globalization. Now the anthropology is no longer just about the past, it is the most happening and the sustainable future of the country or the world. Normally the biological diversity, since I am also biologist basically, it refers to the genes or genetic composition, physical traits, and the adaptations to the environment. But human evolution made lot of changes or adaptations over a period of time, because, as you know, the Darwinism, it's a survival of the fittest. It's a high altitude tolerance, especially people, those who are living in the high altitudes, like in Himalayas, and the skin pigment variation that makes the people different, and the disease-resistant traits. Normally, some population, they are resistant for some of the diseases. Or, for example, people with the sickle cell, they are resistant to the malaria infection. So there are some certain traits that they have been evolved over a period of time during the course of evolution. And anthropology changes the outdated racial classification. Modern research shows that all humans share 99.9% of the genetic material. All are equal, 99.9%. Race is actually socially constructed, not biologically rigid one. So these are the lines that we have to emphasize on when we are rethinking about the anthropology. The human biological diversity is not about the hierarchy. It is about the adaptation, resilience, and the survival. These are the ones that we have to, this Congress should emphasize on the 3-day deliberations. When we see the cultural diversity, it allows the communities to manage local ecosystem sustainability, develop regional specific agriculture, preserve the biodiversity. As I see Professor Sudhakar sir's gist of the proposed one, just I am glancing through the abstract, he mentioned about the Chipko movement, Narmada Bachawat. So there are no history only, but still we have gone through and afforestation has been done. We constructed a lot of things, but keeping the away from the environmental destruction. These environmental destruction might give the temporary benefits to the society, but in long run, the sustainability or the environmental damage will be there and that we cannot restore that one. Now the indigenous farming system, it protects the soil health. That's why people are talking about the indigenous. So now in the university, Pondicherry University, as you know that every university must be having, we have the 780 acres of the land in the main campus. We keep planting the plants every year on some occasion or the other. So now we made a point that let us plant only the fruit-bearing plants so that it can attract the birds or it can attract the small animals like butterflies and all. So that makes the environmental friendly, or we can also protect the ecosystem of the Pondicherry University. And also, we are also emphasizing to plant the plants which are native to this place. So the plants that they are native to this place will not destruct the environment or the soil. So that should be the motto of, because of this one. Loss of cultural diversity, loss of ecological knowledge. And integration of ecology, and earlier people also spoke about the spirituality, ethics, and also the community life. Concepts such as the dharma, duty and balance, prakriti, it's nature, and also the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It's a world as a one family. And also, one of the important aspects now the Indian knowledge system talks about the Ayurveda, where the holistic health system linking the body and the environment. So both are actually inseparable. So holistic health condition develops only when you talk about this Ayurveda. And also, the community protects the forest, preserving the biodiversity, which is very much to be emphasized in this conference. And also traditional water system, steep wells, tanks and the rainwater system, which have been the part of the anthropology people that they have been teaching. Now the government is emphasizing to adopt these things. That means we have to rethink, we are going back and seeing that what the people have been proposed earlier, now we have to adapt and we have to implement that in toto. Now, the Indian knowledge traditions do not separate the humans from the nature. They see humans as part of an interconnected web. Now, the studies on local ecological practices and documents on the traditional climate adaptation strategies, this promotes the community-based conservation, bridges the modern science and the indigenous wisdom. So therefore, let me conclude by saying that the globalization, it is the protection of the cultural diversity is very much essential, and revival of the indigenous knowledge systems is one of the parts of these particular deliberations. The critical reflections can be, there are certain challenges like globalization threatens the local culture, and modern development marginalizes the Indian communities or indigenous communities. Intellectual property issues around the traditional knowledge, climate change disproportionately affects the tribal population. So this is another important aspect, that the relocation of the tribals from the native place is not only that we think that it's going to be a development, but that is going to have a very high impact on the environment. And anthropology must act not just an observer, but as an advocate. In conclusion, the Indian knowledge system offers the ethical models of the sustainability. Anthropology must shift from studying others to collaborating with the communities, from documentation loss to supporting the resilience. To rethink anthropology is the rethinking the humanity, not as a masters of the nature, but as responsible participant in the shared ecological future. I congratulate the organizers for taking up this issue and emphasizing the sustainable growth and also the linking with the Indian knowledge system. The anthropology students has much more bigger role to play in the modern world, where the artificial intelligence is going to rule. And also, without tampering the environment and the sustainable development, we have to go further. Anthropology, as Professor B.V. Sharma indicated, that anthropology has roots are still very intact, very strong, and the shoots has to be developed by the students, and the changing the words, reforming or rethinking the anthropology will always be helpful and useful to the society. With this, I once again congratulate the organizers, and may these deliberations of this Anthropological Congress 2026 will be meaningful insights for newer collaborations for the research networks and to more inclusive, sustainable, and ethically grounded futures. I declare this Anthropological Congress 2026 is formally inaugurated. So thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing your perspective and your reflections of this Congress. Now, as we draw this inaugural session to a close, I invite Professor Jaisratnam Devarapalli, Treasurer of IAC 2026 and Professor at the Department of Anthropology, to propose the vote of thanks.
Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, I have the pleasant duty of proposing vote of thanks at the conclusion of this inaugural session of Indian Anthropology Congress. I feel it a great honor to thank our esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor P. Prakash Babu Garu, an eminent academician and a world-renowned neuroscientist, who also has a right understanding of what anthropology is. He made a point that the roots of anthropology are strong and the shoots has to take their responsibility. A great message that he has given to the younger generation. Thank you, sir, on behalf of the Department of Anthropology and on behalf of INCA. I thank you for sparing your precious time with us. I also thank Professor Kishore Basa, Chairman, INCA, and former Chairman, National Monuments Authority, Government of India. Though he raised a question about the very existence of anthropology, but in his own style, he has substantiated what anthropologists can do and what anthropology can do and how it can be done. And he left a challenge before all the anthropologists here and the future anthropologists to come. Thank you, sir, for your illuminating speech. I also thank Professor B.V. Sharma, Director, ANSI Kolkata, and also Vice Chairperson of INCA, for he has enlightened the task of ANSI, the achievements what ANSI is doing as a backbone of anthropological knowledge system. I thank you, sir, for your presentation and your presence here. I also thank Professor Suboroy, Secretary of INCA, and he has smartly and shortly has put before us the aims and objectives of ANSI. And I thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. And I also thank the faculty members from different departments of our university and students and scholars, and also our own students and scholars for taking part in this. I also thank all the administrative staff of our university. Unless they support us, things cannot happen. I once again thank all the administrative staff of our university for their support. Media, the electronic and press media, they are with us. I thank every one of them for their coverage. I once again thank all the dignitaries, participants, everyone here for your presence. Thank you, one and all.